MGF's T700 brace is a new bracing system designed to be used in conjunction with MGF's existing 406UC brace to create the strongest modular hydraulic bracing system available in the UK. The system is ideally suited for clear spans ranging from 11 metres to over 30 metres and can also be used in conjunction with MGF 600 series and 1000 series bracing struts. T700 brace must only be used with fully towed in, well installed, minimum 8mm thick steel trench sheets or sheet piles, providing sufficient stability to support the brace during installation and removal. The T700 brace is available in lengths of up to 12 metres and simply connects to 406UC components using transition pieces. The T700 brace components have a maximum allowable bending moment capacity of 4,640 kN and can be used as a rigid whaler in conjunction with bracing struts, including MGF's new 3,500 kN hydraulic strut. All components should be laid on timber skids outside of the excavation. T700 components are extremely heavy. It is essential that a lifting plan has been produced prior to any lifting operation. Ensure that the weight of each load is known and that a suitable two-leg chain is specified. It is essential to ensure the loads are balanced correctly and that the lift will be stable. Operatives should not be in the vicinity of the excavator during the lifting process. Due to the size and weight of the T700 brace lengths, these should be assembled within the excavation. However, if any 406UC components are required, then these can be part assembled outside of the excavation. T700 brace legs can be combined with 406UC brace legs to create a frame. For long narrow jobs, such as tank installs, T700 may be required on the long lengths. The shorter legs would usually be 406UC brace. Excavate to the required depth to enable the top frame to be assembled, usually maximum 1 metre deep. The 406UC hydraulic power pack should be connected to the T700 transition Type 2 prior to lowering into the excavation. The hydraulic power pack should now be extended using the motorised pump to the desired length prior to connecting to the transition piece. The transition piece can then be connected to the power pack by carefully lining up the connecting lugs before inserting the 50mm diameter 406UC connecting pin and securing in place using a retaining clip. The end plate should then be bolted together using 6 grade 8.8 M30 nuts and bolts. These assembled components should now be lowered into the excavation onto suitable timber supports or pre-installed whaler support brackets. The level of these supports must be different to suit either the 406UC components or the T700 components, due to the difference in heights of the two types of sections. Ensure once a complete leg has been installed that it is level and bearing evenly on all supports. If restraining chains are being used instead of whaler support brackets, then these should be connected between the lifting points and the top of the sheet before the lifting chains are removed. When using restraining chains, the centre line of the top frame must be at least 1 metre below the top of the sheet. It is recommended to install a hanging chain onto each available lifting point on the T700 brace extensions. Ensure that the chain rating and quantity are sufficient for what is being hung from it, especially when bracing struts are installed. The leg can now continue to be assembled within the excavation. The T700 components can now be lifted into the excavation one by one and connected together. Ensure the 406UC components are stable when connecting the T700 extension. Carefully line up the connecting lugs and insert the 60mm diameter T700 connecting pin. Secure in place using a retaining clip. The end plate should then be bolted together using 8 M30 nuts and bolts. Continue to install the remaining leg components using the same method. The end of the brace leg will require stepping back down to 406UC using the T700 transition Type 1. The remaining legs can now start to be installed. When it comes to installing the final leg in the frame, this should be built up from the opposite end to the other legs, so the 406UC power pack is installed last. power pack should be fully retracted and the inner pinned into the adjacent leg. This should then be carefully extended so the power pack outer lugs can connect to the leg. Once the lugs are lined up, the final connecting pin can be installed. Once all the legs have been installed, each power pack can be preloaded. MGF recommend a maximum preload pressure of 100 bar or 1500 psi. However, if higher preloads are required, please contact MGF for further details. Carefully examine the entire frame perimeter to ensure that the alignment of the legs are straight, do not visibly bow into the excavation, and are evenly bearing upon the trench sheets or sheet piles. If cross struts or knee braces are required with the T700 frame, then these should be installed once each leg has been installed and preloaded. The T700 brace is fully compatible with MGF 400, 600 and 1000 series bracing struts. Should the design require cross struts or knee braces, then 400 series 3500 kN swivels can connect to the T700 brace using transition plates. The bracing strut that is to be installed should be built up as shown in the bracing strut safe system of work. There is one T700 swivel transition detail that accepts both 3500 kN swivels. The Type A swivel, which is predominantly used in knee braces, can be installed in two positions depending on the angle of the knee brace. Both swivels should only be installed in a horizontal plane. The T700 brace extensions feature integrated shear stops at set locations on the beam for use with bracing struts. Once the bracing strut is assembled, the swivel transition plate should be attached to both swivels at either end of the strut using M24 by 100 countersunk bolts. Ensure the swivel transition plate is assembled correctly. It is essential that the swivel plate fully bears onto the shear stop when installed onto the frame. M24 washers must be used. The swivel plate and transition plate must be flush with each other on the bearing face. The strut swivel plate should sit on the ledger of the transition plate. The strut can now be extended to the desired length. The upper swivel transition whaler clamp can now be loosely bolted to each transition plate using M30 bolts. The bracing strut can now be lowered into position onto the whaler frame. Taglines should be used to control the lift. Once the bracing strut has been positioned on the whaler, the hydraulic strut can be pressurised, so each end of the strut swivel plate bears fully onto the shear stops. The strut can now be taken to the required preload pressure. The upper clamp can now be fully tightened and the lower clamps can be installed. Once all the required bracing struts are installed, then excavating can continue until the level of the next frame.